Well, Anthony Weiner is here, mayoral candidate for mayor, obviously. Okay, here's Anthony.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
First of all the times I've ever done town hall meetings here, I've never had this. This was like a dance floor. Is that what I'm doing? First of all, it's great to be back. Can I ask all of my friends in the media to not get between me and the citizens? That would be great. This way, I can have a chance to have a conversation. First of all, it is really great to be back. Back in Rockaway. I have been in this room, I don't know, 1,000 times. You all knew me as your congressman back when I was skinny, so we go way back. And a lot has transpired since I saw some of you last, but it's really terrific to be back. I want to talk a little bit about my ideas going forward, but what I'd really like to do, since it's been a while since we all got together, is I would love to have a chance to hear some of your questions and some ideas. I should tell you that a lot of my friends who travel with me now in the media said, can you answer some questions at the beginning so we can all leave? And I said, no, you should hear a little bit about what people in Rockaway are going through. You should hear a little bit about what their challenges are because, frankly, very often Rockaway is not only a geographically isolated place, it's a forgotten place when it comes to the governance of the city of New York. And I want to try to change that. First of all, let me just say a couple of things. You know, for years we would have these fights, and I see some of our elected officials are here. I know this. Have you done all the introductions, or should I do them? Councilman Ehrlich is here. I see Melinda Katz, who's running for bar president. I see Letitia James, an excellent candidate for public advocate. Anyone I'm missing? I see, is that Audrey? Audrey Pepper in the back. Phil Goldfeder, I saw Angelica earlier, but I think Phil is here.
Don't forget Joe Hardigan.
Is that Joe Adabo? Mr. Adabo is here. It is really great to see them all again. If the heckling starts, it's Adabo for sure. So for years and years in Rockaway, we were having these conversations about the beach and the waterfront and the dunes. I mean, some people did talk about the fact that someday we could have a big storm, but it was usually how we keep the beach where it was. Every couple of years we pump sand onto the beach, and a couple of years later we go visit in Breezy, because Mother Nature would do what it did and sweep it right away. We had these pitch battles over dunes. If I had a dime for every meeting I went to over the dunes, I'd be a wealthy person. But you know, in all of that time, the single biggest thing that just about everyone agreed upon, not everyone, but just about everyone agreed upon, is that if we only had some real thought put into this, we'd build some groins or some jetties, we'd keep the sand where it is, we wouldn't have those swirling tides that they have to the east where they're, frankly, literally people were dying because of the tides. That if we gave it some real thought, it actually made a lot of sense financially because rather than dump sand every 2 or 3 years, the sand would stay where it was. That was the answer, and in 2006 I put out a report saying, you know what, another reason to do it is we're due for a 100-year storm. You know, we were due. I mean, the clock was ticking on us, and we had a lot of residents of Rockaway, even when it wasn't anything that made the headlines, there were storm tides, that there were times that the bay would meet the ocean. It wasn't that uncommon. The same conversation we had again and again when we were restoring the marshes in Broad Channel. The idea being, you know what, you just can't be putting concrete on everything and not expect there to be some effect. So the storm came, and without fear of contradiction, I don't think that the city response was great. The community's response was amazing. I mean, the way people pulled together, what was going on every day at St. Francis, what was going on every day at the American Legion Hall in Broad Channel was amazing. But the communication with the city, if I had one more time where I would come down here to try to help out and I'd see another, giant truck full of blankets piled up in the parking lot at Wallbounds, I mean, it was clear that the city didn't understand what the challenge is. So here we are today, and a lot of people are still facing real challenges. But first, let me talk about the community. This is actually, in my view, an opportunity that was created by this storm. Every crisis breeds a little bit of opportunity. The opportunity was to really measure twice and cut once, try to have the thing that we wanted. I know the Wave had a competition to talk about what ideas people had. And frankly, instead of having a real conversation about that, the city came in and for reasons that maybe you understand that I don't, was obsessed with concessions was obsessed with their own idea for hipster-looking concessions on the beach, rather than really giving some real thought to the community about how you restore the boardwalk and how you restore the community. It took an act of God to get a ferry here. That's great. That's great. Now we have to make sure that it stays here for a fraction of what we do. Listen, we subsidize the ferry 100% in Staten Island. God bless them. I don't want them to lose any service. We're not asking for a subsidy anything near that, but no mass transit works in the United States of America without some subsidy. The bus that comes down the street, the train, it all gets some kind of subsidy. All we've ever said as a community is help us with a little bit of a subsidy and people will come. And sure enough, as we've seen, people are getting on the ferry. We've got to make sure that it continues past Labor Day. We've got to stop this game of having to go to City Hall, beg them for another week, beg them for another month. This is fairly simple. I put $15 million in the budget. By the way, it's not my money, it was your money. $15 million in the budget to buy ferries years ago. They never wanted to do it. They've still got the money. They should put it towards ferry service. They should put MetroCard readers on all the ferry services, on the ferries. They should find a reasonable amount to charge. No one's asking for a free ride. And then we should have consistent ferry service for the time to come. The third thing that we should do is we should take money that's been allocated to buy people out of their homes and we should put it towards subsidizing people so they can pay their flood insurance. It just doesn't work to say to someone, you've got to make $10,000 worth of improvements on your home. No one has $10,000, but people have to do it to be eligible for flood insurance. And I have to say this, one of my opponents in this race said that we have to never rebuild on the floodplain. Well, that was Mr. Thompson said that. Well, he's got to come visit Rockaway. If you look at the map, we are standing on a floodplain. We can't say we're not going to rebuild. We don't have that luxury. And let me make one final point. You know, it is great we're going to finally start putting some more sand on the beach. It is great that we're doing this Christmas tree dune thing. I'm not quite sure I understand what Christmas trees have to do with it, but apparently they're building the dunes on top of Christmas trees, if I'm to understand this correctly. By the way, all I know about this subject is what I read in the Wave, so that's if they got it wrong, then I don't know what I'm talking about. But we also have to start doing some long-term planning that includes people in this room. For too long, the attitude has been, don't worry, Rockaway. We know it's good for you, and they kind of pat us on the community head and just send us on the way. That has to change. I can't say that that I'm going to get everything right if I get elected mayor. I'm sure I'm going to make mistakes. You know, many of you were here when I stood in this very same spot and had 3 town hall meetings on Obamacare. I got my butt kicked sometimes, but I always stood here and tried to fight for what I believed in. And I freely admit to you, my friends, and many of you have known me for a long time, I know I'm an imperfect messenger for a lot of these things. I know that there are things in my background that you now know about that are embarrassing, but I can tell you this, whether it's me or someone else, what this community should insist upon is that we get listened to. Rockaway might be this faraway place to City Hall. It won't be if I'm mayor, but this is the moment. This is the moment when elections happen for people to say, we want to hear what you have to say, but we also want you to listen to what we have to say. For too long in Rockaway, that conversation hadn't happened. I wasn't a perfect congressman for all of you, but I was always here. I always tried to be someone that listened to you. I always took your suggestions to heart. I always said the same thing about Rockaway. Because Rockaway was kind of the bottom of my district, but it was the heart and soul to me. It was what I would not have been elected to Congress. Linda Katz knows this, actually. I would have not been elected to Congress had I not had the support and love of people in Rockaway. I will never forget that as long as I live. If I never get elected to another thing for the rest of my life, I will always remember the people in Rockaway and remember it fondly. Thank you very much.